Just talking about Sonic Adventure's Sonic campaign this video. I honestly don't know how I feel about it overall. There are things that I like about it, there are elements I think are quite weak, there are things that I think are really annoying, and I don't really know in my mind what outweighs what. I guess I'll just start with moving in this game, the basic steering. If you're going fast in a game with momentum, like a racing game, you can't expect to turn the stick left and immediately go left. Your built-up momentum won't allow that. To take turns properly, you have to slow down and start turning before reaching the turn, and you have to start the turn from the outside. These are considerations that make the basic act of steering interesting. This is not Sonic Adventure. Momentum basically has no factor in steering, and the game controls like basically any other platformer in that aspect, allowing you to redirect your speed in any direction, basically instantaneously. That is inherently less interesting than it could be, but paired with just how fast you can go in this game via the spam dash and spin dash jumps, it can still be pretty thrilling in its own way. And it's not even necessarily shallow gameplay, depending on the level design you're weaving through. I am talking about level design in which speeding through requires using analog control to steer through obstacles and turn with the ground's curves. In a similar way, there is a level design piece in the beginning of the At Dawn section of Speed Highway that I like, a brief wall running section. Sonic has to keep moving or he'll fall off the wall. The thing is that the wall is a narrow strip that curves, so to not fall off, you have to turn at the right rate and degree to follow the curve. This is a type of gameplay that Sonic Adventure at times does well, and when it does, it's gameplay we don't really see past Sonic Adventure and 3D Sonic, which has become significantly more just run or boost forward. The boost games introduce things like the quick step and drift to sort of try and implement this gameplay. I think the drift is fine, calling for similar considerations that steering in a racing game does, at least when they remove the guardrails and let you actually fall off the road if you mess it up. But the quick step is just press left or right to switch lanes, not asking for the precision of controlling how far left or right you go directly, and just generally being uninteresting. Back on Sonic Adventure, it unfortunately doesn't always have design like this, where speeding through is about steering through such obstacles and curves. Instead, they may have sections that are kind of just going forward, or being shot through automation, which is just kind of boring. Pure spectacle sections are a problem even in some classic-styled games, but they also at least have physics and level design that allows for gameplay during such sections. I am referring to timing jumps off slopes at speed as you come to certain points on the terrain's hills. That's not really a thing in Sonic Adventure, for multiple reasons. Maybe in these high-speed sections there are no slopes to time jumps off of, if it isn't just automation. Maybe you're running at Sonic's default top speed, which is not enough to overcome the aggressive amounts of air drag in this game, meaning that any slope jumps off the hills don't really go anywhere. Or maybe it's the overpowered spin dash in this game, which you're probably already spamming. Instead of timing a jump as you run across a specific point of the terrain, you just go stand on that point and spin dash jump off of it, which takes no timing, little skill, and it's just not very interesting. Which brings me to an opinion I know most would not agree with. I don't find spin dash jumping to be a particularly fun or interesting mechanic in this game. Most of the time, there's not much thought involved, no really trying to pay attention and figure out opportunities to do it, because the opportunities are usually pretty obvious. That would just leave the fun of executing the move, which I also don't find very interesting for basically the reasons I've described. I find that the only reasons I usually even fail a spin dash jump is less because of its difficulty, and more because I didn't feel like waiting on something. Maybe I don't wait for the spin dash to charge up to full speed, which is needed to make some jumps, particularly one in Speed Highway. Maybe I don't take the time to adjust the camera to see where I am aiming. Maybe I don't wait for the snake in Lost World to circle around, so as to get in range of the platform I'm trying to spin dash jump to. Maybe I don't take the time to turn on the lights in Lost World's dark section, so I can see where I need to land. Maybe spin dash jumping would be more interesting if, after launching off, you had to use air control to swerve around things, or if you had to time the launch between openings and moving obstacles. However, while I wouldn't say it adds much meaningful engagement to the game, I wouldn't necessarily want it gone. Even if not interesting, it is useful. And sometimes you can use it in weird ways, like standing on near vertical walls and spin dashing off of them. Speaking of mechanics I don't particularly find interesting, we have the homing attack. Gameplay of just simply pressing jump and then pressing jump again. No real precision or skill involved. Homing attack chains are shallow gameplay. But as long as they don't become a dominant part of the games going forward to where they replace actual platforming or other things requiring skill, as long as they never do that, we'll be fine. Let's get more positive for a second and talk about movement and level mechanics that I do actually enjoy or see potential in. First up, the light speed attack. It does make you stop and charge it, which is not ideal for keeping up a flow. However, failing to activate it here against Chaos 6 due to not being close enough made me realize it could potentially be used in an interesting way. Get close enough to be in range to something to activate it, but not so close that that thing can harm you. Basically positioning and footsies. That could be cool. As far as level gimmicks, I'll mention these yellow jump pads. Once you actually start jumping from pad to pad, you're just kind of pressing X over and over again. However, initiating the first one can be kind of interesting if you're trying to get through quickly. I think the idea is that you want to time a jump as you run over them. Springs have a neat feature in this game and its sequel. You can control how high they bounce you by how long you hold jump. I don't think that is used in a particularly interesting way, but it could potentially be, like if you try to bounce to specific heights. In Ice Cap, there's a gimmick where you jump onto icicles and grab them, spin around them to the other side from which you can jump to the next icicle. Even though you don't exactly move at high speeds while doing this, you are still moving the entire time. And then you just jump when you reach the point you want to jump off of. Keeping afloat to these sections as you try to time the stuff properly is pretty fun. In Lost World, I do appreciate how the lights also have a flow to them. They don't waste your time. The second you grab them, you can start turning them. The moment you turn them to the mirrors you need to shine them on, you let go and are able to move forward again. In Red Mountain, there are these seesaw platforms that swing up and down that you have to time your jumps in tandem with. Not much, but it is platforming that requires this at all, rather than just being something you can fly over with spin dash jumps, and you are kept waiting long. Less gimmick and more set piece, but I do like the car section of Twinkle Park. I actually don't play many racing games, and the ones I do play, I don't play a lot, but I do like them. That gameplay is interesting to me, and I can see getting better at this section being fun in a similar way. Also, there's the snowboarding section of Ice Cap. Actually not that strong gameplay-wise in comparison to something like City Escape, which has more jumps and more sections where you need to precisely time turns. But spectacle-wise, the camera is quite up close, making you feel like you're right with Sonic. And all the twists and turns, the sudden drop-offs, the fact that the area is so wide that you probably can't get over in time to jump off the ramps unless you memorize where they are, the ice that you smash through, all of it combines together to feel exactly as chaotic and hectic and out of control as snowboarding down a mountain pursued by an avalanche should. And when you can time jumps off the ramps, the camera work and massive increase in speed is just glorious. Now, I mentioned good gimmicks. Unfortunately, not everything in the game is a winner. For one thing, there are some gimmicks that you interact with by basically doing nothing. The trampolines in Windy Valley you just kind of let Sonic bounce on. The ladders you climb by just holding up, don't have to time movements between hazards or anything. Or if there are hazards, you climb so slowly while on the ladder that all you can do is jump off. In Final Egg, there are moving platforms that move really slowly, making you have to sit and wait. Sitting and waiting on the snake in Lost World isn't great. In Twinkle Park, there's a roller coaster ride you get on, after which you literally just sit and do nothing for quite an extended amount of time. Sky Chase, there's a slow-paced auto-scroller you don't even have to play, but can just sit in the top right of the screen to automatically pass both acts. These aren't great gameplay-wise because of the boredom, but honestly what I most dislike is Casinopolis. It is less any one gimmick and more so the entire level that annoys me. To get the amount of rings needed to beat the stage quickly, it is basically required to memorize which paths in the sewer sections grant you rings, because not all of them do. I also find it annoying how the machine will take more rings than it needs. So in the B missions, when you're asked to end the level with 50 rings, it is basically required to do another run through the sewer or more pinball stuff, which I kinda just feel is wasting my time. Unfortunately, that transitions well to this next section, because another thing that I feel wastes my time are these hub worlds. One of my issues is admittedly self inflicted. I don't really care about this game's story, and so I skip cutscenes left and right. It isn't the game's fault when I also end up skipping hub world cutscenes, showing what I need to grab next to take somewhere to unlock the next level, not seeing said cutscene and thus being lost, but it is still pretty annoying. And then if you take a break from the game and come back, those cutscenes showing the thing you need to find and use don't replay. So if you forgot, which I did at one point, you're going to be wandering around aimlessly. Like there's a point in the game where it's like, use the ice stone in the mystic ruins. And for a second I'm like, what are you talking about? What is the ice stone? Where is the ice stone? And then after you grab the thing, like the statue that unlocks Windy Valley, for example, you just kind of wander around aimlessly for a few minutes until you stumble across what you're supposed to use it on. Tikal might say, go to the captain's room, when I turn to her for directions, like I know what or where that is. Things started to really push me when I was trying to unlock Speed Highway. The car they want you to find is tiny, and it doesn't really stand out that much from the ground at night, so it's really easy to just run past it and not see it, which is exactly what I did for almost 10 minutes. Running back and forth, talking to NPCs, futilely going to the hint bar which just says, have you tried checking the whole city? I understand that they wanted to go for a more exploration feel, but I kinda just want to play the levels. And that makes these situations even more frustrating. And so that's one of the reasons I think I'll stick with trial mode. The bosses are another reason I think I'll stick with trial mode and not look back, because they're nothing special at all. The method of attack is just the homing attack, which is press X and then press X again. And as far as evading their attacks, just running around in circles and jumping generally takes care of it. And that is in the bosses they can attack back. In rival bosses like Knuckles or Gamma, you literally just hit them over and over again and stun lock them. Even the Egg Viper. There's times I just kind of stand around, homing attacks, jumping over lasers, which is not hard at all because of how floaty the jump is and how long you stay in the air. There's one thing you have to kind of time your jump with, but overall these just have really weak design. There are other elements of design that I think are questionable. Like at times they lay out hazards in the levels like this here at the beginning of Final Egg. I wonder why they even put them here. You can just spin dash jump over the lasers or outright destroy them, go around the spikes in the middle, and the next lasers you do nothing to avoid. You just hold forward and run under them. There are B missions in the game where you're asked to get 50 rings and try to touch the goal. You hear that and you think, okay, so I'm going to have to go out of my way to get rings and then try not to get hit. But not really. There are rings everywhere, so you don't generally have to go out of your way. And if you do get hit, as long as you're not at the end of the stage, it basically doesn't matter. It may not even take a minute to get all your rings back. So essentially, the game is actually asking you to get 50 rings and not get hit in the last part of the level, meaning playing the first part was just pointless repetition. Maybe you could just drop the player at the end of the level, or have the level just end where 50 rings are collected. This would make them quicker, especially in levels where you can get nearly all of that in the first 20 seconds, but it would also mean less wasting your time. If you couldn't tell, we're now at a point where I'm going to start talking about things that don't work properly, or at least not how I think they should. Some of this stuff I don't really care about that much. I'm more concerned with talking about the intentional design of the game, not just stuff clearly not working. But yeah, it is a problem. For example, the homing attack. If you forget that it doesn't bounce you up after using it on a floating item box, like it does with everything else, you may find that if you homing attack such a gimmick over a pit, that you'll just plummet to your death and die. The homing attack can unexpectedly target something you're not facing, making you veer off to the side and possibly die due to not being prepared for that. Or the homing attack may just, inconsistently, not stop your momentum, causing you to shoot off a platform and die. There are times when automation kind of doesn't work right and springs or ramps send you to your death. In Skydeck, you can suddenly get hit by lasers from somewhere off screen with no warning. I did have a really questionable death trying to get into Lost World. I assume I went through some collision or something and fell to my death, but the camera was blocked, so I can't really say. And Final Egg, after this spring sends you up into the air, you can't really see below you, and that you're about to fall into a pit if you don't move over in time. That is, you can't see it until it is too late to do anything. So far, this has been annoyances independent of your player character, but unfortunately, I do have some minor to not so minor complaints about Sonic's physics themselves as well. As far as a more major one, unlike the classics, Sonic seems incapable of accelerating midair, and because he moves so slowly horizontally when jumping from a standstill, I get very anxious I'm going to undershoot very simple jumps at times, forcing me to use the air dash, which gives a sudden burst of speed that I don't want, for fear of instead overshooting the platform. Most relevant in certain sections of Final Egg. When roll running, Sonic can feel really twitchy, jerking up and down really quickly. In sections like the wall running section and Emerald Coast, I honestly opt to just jump at the end of it for more control, so I can get into the entrance to the top path, which I ideally shouldn't feel like I have to do. Jumping into a ceiling kills not only vertical momentum but horizontal as well, as you get snagged on it. If a ramp or spin dash jump sends you into the ceiling, you'll get stuck for a few moments. I kinda wish the upward momentum was just cancelled, allowing you to fall back down and continue on. Sonic's jump is really floaty. It takes him a long while to actually fall, at least when in a jump roll, and he does not build downward momentum as he falls. I kinda wish his fall speed when jumping was the same as it is after an air dash. It's kind of annoying how jumping into magnets, which didn't kill your momentum in the classics, does here, and jumping out of water kills your horizontal momentum for some reason.